I believe that this is our time. This is when it really matters. Yes, we voted to repeal Obamacare 30 to 40 times, but this is when it really counts. This is when it's time to put up or shut up.
Yeah, we 30, 40, maybe more than 40. Yeah, we did. Those other 30 or 40 times that they had, taken those votes before, forget that. This time they had figured out a way to make it count. They had figured out a way to not be ignored anymore. And their plan this time, the thing that got us here in the first place, is that the Republicans in the House decided they would refuse to fund anything. They would refuse to fund the entire government unless the Democrats caved and finally let them kill Obamacare. This was their brilliant plan. They thought this would work. The Democrats will never let the government be shut down. They said, we'll demand the only way that the Democrats can avoid that is to kill Obamacare. That's how we will finally get our way. That was the plan that got us here. The Democrats said no to the Republicans on that. Republicans thought for sure the Democrats would cave on this, but the Democrats said no. And so 16 days ago, the government did, in fact, shut down, which maybe the Republicans did not expect. Because once they had an actual shutdown on their hands, they did not seem to have a plan for what to do next. At least it was a hitch in the plan, right? They got the shutdown, but Democrats didn't agree to repeal Obamacare. So now what? And that is when the demand list started changing. The effort to force the Democrats into giving them something in exchange for holding the country hostage. From that point on went something like this. Okay, we can't get Obamacare repealed. Can we get a defunding of Obamacare? The Democrats said no. Can we get Obamacare delayed? The Democrats said no. Can we delay the specific individual mandate in Obamacare? The Democrats said no. They wanted to keep it on Obamacare, but they're sort of running out of Obamacare ideas until this point. So David Vitter of all people, comes up with a new list of weird specific demands about Obamacare. So then the next demand was, can we deny health insurance coverage specifically to the president himself and the vice president? That actually was one of their demands. The Democrats said no. Can we mess with the health insurance of the people who work for members of Congress, congressional staffers? Democrats said no. Can we mess with the health insurance specifically of members of the president's cabinet? They said, that's what we want. Democrats said no. Then they said, can we make it so birth is not covered by people's health insurance anymore? If you don't let us get people's birth control not covered by their health insurance, you can't open the government. They tried that as a demand. Democrats said no. How about the Keystone Pipeline? Can we force the Keystone Pipeline to be opened? No. Means testing Medicare? No. Changing the pensions of federal employees? No. Expanded oil drilling. They wanted expanded oil drilling on federal lands? No. Net neutrality? Nope. Tort reform? Nope. The EPA's pollution rules for the new coal-fired power plants? They asked for that. The Democrats said no. Then Paul Ryan demanded that he get all of his proposed tax code changes from when he lost, when he was running for vice president. Can we have Paul Ryan's tax code, please? No. Then they demanded that the administration get rid of coal ash regulations. The answer was no. Here was a new one. They demanded to change the tax on medical devices, the one that Evan Bayh is the lobbyist for. The answer for that was no. Can we change the Treasury Department's rules to make the next debt ceiling crisis worse than this one? That was one of the last demands they made. The answer for that one was no. Here's one. Can we get guarantees of income verification for certain low-income people who are going to get subsidies for their health insurance under Obamacare? Yes. Yes, that one you can have, because that actually is already in the Obamacare law. It's already law. So, yeah, you can have that. You also have the right to bestow the name Wednesday on the day that comes after Tuesday, if you like. It already exists. The income verification thing that they won in this process is already in the law. So, yes, sure, magnanimously, you guys can have that. But all of the other long, arcane, improvised, constantly changing list of demands that the Republicans made on their long, weird, ever-changing ransom note that they kept writing and rewriting once they failed. Oops, we actually have shut down the government for some reason. We better come up with a reason why. Of the entire list of things they demanded in exchange for reopening the government throughout this entire crisis, we now know as of tonight that of their entire list, they are going to get nothing. Nothing. You can argue for what you want through the legislative process, by trying to make legislation, amend bills, do great in debates, win votes. You can try to win through the legislative process. You can try to win what you want in terms of policy by winning elections. But when you lose policy fights and you lose elections, the line was drawn here tonight to say, you know what, there is not a third way. There is not another means of policymaking available to you in Washington that involves you destroying things unless you get your way. If you try to do it that way, you will find that what you get off your list of chest-pounding demands is exactly nothing. Nothing. I should say, there is one other thing that they got out of this disaster. Before this crisis started, the Democrats in Congress had been asking for 6 months for there to be negotiations between the two parties and the two houses of Congress to talk big picture about the budget, so as to try to avoid this lurching from crisis to crisis that we've been going through since the Republicans got control in the House. Democrats have been asking for that since April. They've asked for that by their own count 21 times. And Republicans have been saying no over and over again. They have refused to participate in that process. Well, now, as part of this deal being worked out and voted on tonight, the Republicans have finally agreed that, yes, they will do that negotiation thing that the Democrats have been asking for 6 months, that they have been refusing all this time, until now. So, to summarize, through this process, Republicans, oh yes, I think we fit them all on here. Republicans said that they would shut down the government, or then once they they would refuse to open the government unless they got each of these things. Of all the things that they wanted, they got nothing. On the other hand, the Democrats had suggested before this whole process that they would please like to talk about the budget, and now Republicans will go along with that after refusing for 6 months. So tonight, on day 16 of the government shutdown, on the eve of the date when the Treasury said we would hit the debt ceiling and start to be unable to pay what we owe with God knows what consequences for the American economy and the global economy. Tonight, the Senate once again passed a bill to reopen the government and raise the debt ceiling.